Howdy folks, it's Mama B and Toki. He's inspecting the threads. We are going to work on a skirt today. We're going to do a crochet along, and we're starting with a light blue, and it'll get a little bit darker and a little bit darker, and then we'll end with this navy. These are yarns that have already been used, and so they're partial balls or partial skeins, and Toki's going to make sure that they're all perfect. So we're just going to start with this one, this lightest blue. So I'm using Aunt Lydia's number 10 threads. The skirt that I've chosen is very plain. It's just a blue skirt. There's no extra fancy. There's no any little designs. So we're going to fancify it. And we're going to start with a needle. This one's a very fine, number 10. It's got a very, very pointy hook, and that's the reason we're going to start. This is kind of a fine denim, so it will go through relatively easy, and we need the sharpness to be able to poke right through that. So others have suggested using a needle along with it, and that's a great idea. I'm just going to tell you right now, that's a great idea. I am maybe more lazy, and I don't want to have to pick up a needle every single time, so I'm just going to use the hook. Of course, sometimes being lazy is the hardest way. So you be the judge and do what you feel is best. We're going to start with a slip knot, and you want to work from the back of the skirt. So this is the front, it's got the button on it. So I'm just going to flip it over and start with the back seam. Right? Okay, folks, I'm going to insert this real fast. I'm most of the way around this skirt, and I realized a mistake that I made, and I would like to help you with it so that you don't make the same mistake. I have started crocheting this skirt with the underseam facing me. And when you start crocheting it, you're going to want to make sure that the outer seam is facing you. The outside of the skirt is facing you. This way, it will ensure that your stitches have the correct side facing out, and you'll have more control of how they look. So it's overall a better thing to have the outside of the skirt, or the skirt side that you want everybody to see, facing up as you crochet. You want to start at the back seam in case your connections aren't great. Mine are usually pretty good, but every once in a while I'm really glad that I started at the back. So we're just going to always start at the back and work it through. Now these seams are the hardest parts to get through, but you just kind of, let's try that again. Slip knot into that skirt and work that hook, that yarn through. Make sure you get all of it. That's one thing that happens. Sometimes you drop off part of that yarn, that thread, and you want to make sure you get all of it. And then also working in the ends, gonna yarn over and drop that off. We're just gonna single crochet all the way around this, all the way around the bottom of the skirt. And you don't want to go very far apart. If you go too far, your skirt will start buckling in between. See, that's kind of tough because it's still going through the thick part of that seam. There we go. You can see that this part is just a little bit of work. And there's other ways you can connect this. I've done it where you just sew a hem or a seam line through around it, but those have broken over time and I don't like them as much. This one will last as long as your skirt lasts you, and probably even longer, to be honest. Okay, so I'm not very good with measurements to tell you how far apart you want to make these stitches, but you want to go into the skirt hem and as far apart. Let me see if I can explain that better. Okay, so you don't want it right on the end and just barely catch, because then it'll have more chance tear. But you also don't want it clear up here because then you're going to have issues with tension and bulk. So right about that far away from the edge, can you see that? And it's about that far between stitches as well. You just pop that through, yarn, and honestly with this material it's going to be so much easier. The rest of the hem, just not over the seams. They're a little bit more work. So I'm just going to work that end in and just keep going around. It's usually putting on these stitches are the hardest part of doing it. Everything else is just time consuming. So this is really great material to work with. It's very thin denim. Maybe it's even a mock denim. Maybe it's not even a real denim. I don't know. You know what? I can look. Alright, got the tag here. It says, I don't know if you can see it, but it says 76% cotton algodon. Not sure if I'm saying that right. 23% polyester and polyester spandex. 1%. I've noticed that spandex materials are really easy to work with. So here we go on that one. It's a good one to use, especially if this is your first time doing a skirt. So we're just going to keep working through it. You can see I'm getting pretty close together and there's no buckle in between. It's making a nice edge, and that's another reason why it's nice to do it fairly close. And Toki is helping me. This blessed little bird has climbed up my sleeve. That's a little unnerving because sometimes he pinches your skin up those sleeves. He's also pulling the yarn all apart. He's so helpful. Toki, you say hello? Now you got to check out that skirt, right? Make sure it's all good. Well, this part is quite time consuming. So I'm going to speed this up and we're just going to get cruising right through it. Toki, you're so helpful. Yeah? Gotta fluff sometimes, huh? Sometimes you just gotta take time out to give scritches. Honestly, who even needs to crochet anymore? You got a bird, right? It's like that sometimes. Sometimes you just gotta take time out. If you're enjoying watching Toki, you can see him on our Toki Time playlist. Okay, I'm almost to the end. You see, I've just got a very little bit left. And we're just going to work through that, these little stitches. And then I'm going to show you how to turn it around if you're like me and you've gone almost all the way or far enough you don't want to frog your project. And this, of course, is a seam, so you got to watch me wrestle through it just a little bit, but we can do this. Okay, so we've gone all the way around, and we're just going to go do a slip stitch into that first crochet stitch that you did, and we're going to chain 3. Now, after I've done my border, I always like to do a ruffle row. That's what I call it. It's basically a row of double crochets. So we start that with the chain of 3, and then because I did mine backwards, I'm turning it around. Right? Now I have the outer part of the crochet, or the skirt, facing me, and all my crochet will be the top crochet stitches. And then the chain has just an ever so slight of a twist in it. It's not going to make that big of a difference. The other thing I'm doing is I'm changing my hook. I'm getting a larger hook. I'm moving up to this number 6, which is has a duller point, but it will also hook my thread much easier. And that way it'll be a lot easier to crochet. Now that it's easy for it to go in and out of those stitches, I can have less of the yarn or the thread slipping off. Okay. And now I'm going to make the critical decision of how roughly I want my skirt to be. Now this isn't your final option to decide, so don't panic. But I'm going to put a couple of double crochets in one stitch every, probably about every third one. You'll have to decide how roughly you want it. I just don't want mine to be a straight skirt because it doesn't look as good to me. I don't think, not in this situation. There's others that it would be good, but in this situation I don't want it to be. And I'm just going to start double crocheting all the way around, increasing probably every third stitch. You'll put 2 double crochets in each one, and you can see by the way it's laying that this part is wider than this part, which means it's going to increase, or it is increasing, and that way I know it won't draw in right there at the edge of the skirt where my crochet begins, because that's not really a nice look, if you know what I mean. If you're wondering why I wrap that around my finger, it's to help me get a little more control on the tension, because this yarn is so fine. Sometimes it's hard to do that. And so when it starts to get out of control just a little bit, I will wrap it around my finger an extra time, and when I need to let it loose a little bit, then I can just flip it off my finger like that. And that's kind of nice. Alright, so you can see it's getting just a little ruffle, and we're just going to keep going, double crochet all the way around, increasing roughly every third stitch. Alright, let's speed it up. Alright folks, I'm just going to finish going around on this, and we'll start the next row on the next video. Thanks for joining us. Have a fantastic day. Come on, let's go. Step up. Good boy. Thank you.